Should I become a software engineer? What exactly is a software engineer? You heard that tech jobs pay well, but is software engineering something that I can do? Is that the same as an engineer? An engineer builds things, so I guess a software engineer builds software? But wait, isn't that a developer? None of this makes any sense. And you're right, it doesn't. If you spend time on the internet, you'll find all kinds of job titles in technology. But which ones are worth pursuing? How are you supposed to know? So let's start with what a software engineer actually is. You could type it into Google if you want to, but you may end up more confused than you already are. Wikipedia says that software engineering is the systematic engineering approach to software development. Did that make any sense to you? Me either. In my experience, a software engineer is used as a catch-all for everything IT. If you look up what software engineers do, you may see something like software engineers design and maintain software systems. But that doesn't clear anything up at all. Tell you what, let me define what a software engineer is by telling you what it isn't. So for example, a software engineer is not a software developer. We all know what a developer is, right? Developers are the coders. They're the ones that actually write the code and develop the applications. That makes sense, right? Here's another example. Software engineers are not DBAs or database administrators. DBAs monitor database environments such as SQL Server, Postgres, and so forth. Straightforward, right? I purposely brought up software developers and DBAs because they're easy to describe. I give you a quick description of what they do, and sure, it makes sense. Software engineers, on the other hand, not so much. So let's talk about that developer. For the most part, we want developers to develop. They know the coding languages. They know the logic. They know how to knock out the code. And we want them to be efficient in this arena. And while they may know other tools and platforms, we want them to focus on development. But what happens after they finish developing? How does that code get into the environment? Where does that application live? Which servers require access? This is where a software engineer comes in. In most enterprise environments, the IT landscape is complex and convoluted. You have to know where things are, how they work, and why things were done the way they were. So think about all the systems that a developer interacts with. He probably checked out some code, made his changes, and checked the code back in. From the developer's point of view, his tasks are done. But even in that quick sequence, the developer interacted with repos, source control systems. Even before that, he likely got his tasks and instructions from an agile system like Jira. But then, after he checks in the code, that has to fire some sort of automation to build and package that code. Then it goes to an artifact repo or gets deployed to a specific environment. It's up to the software engineer to maintain all those systems. So even in that quick sequence, the developer interacted with at least 5 different systems. Think about an electrical engineer for a moment. It's their responsibility to design and deliver electrical plans for an office. So in the same vein, it's the software engineer's responsibility to maintain the systems within an organization. So think about that SQL DBA for a moment. They maintain and monitor the databases. But where are those servers? Are they on-prem or are they in the cloud? Are they EC2 instances or RDS instances? It's the system engineer that fills the gap with the DBA. So if you want to break it down into super layman's terms, you can equate the developer or DBA to a chef. The chef knows the ingredients. He knows how to cook. But it's up to the software engineer to know everything else in the kitchen. So as you can see, the software engineer is a sort of jack of all trades in IT. They tend to have a wide range of skills. The key distinction between an engineer and a developer is the actual coding. While an engineer may have some coding skills, they won't be expected to code 8 hours a day. This specific wrinkle is what separates a software engineer from a systems engineer. For the most part, the two titles can be interchanged, but if you want to be super particular, a systems engineer deals with systems, while a software engineer interacts with software. And since everything is software these days, well, you get the point. But back to the original question, should you become a software engineer? If you're looking for a career with longevity and high growth potential, then yes, this would be a good career to look into. Software engineers aren't going away anytime soon. In fact, the field is growing, and it will continue to grow as long as new systems get developed. But there are people that will have an advantage. In IT, it helps to be someone that constantly wants to learn and constantly be challenged. Technology is always evolving and changing, so specifically for software engineers, keeping up will be a challenge. So as you can see, it takes a certain type of person. That being said, the barrier to entry for a software engineer tends to be low. Since software engineers play a supporting role, simply having the drive and willingness to learn could be enough to get you in the door. After all, they can teach you how to use those supporting systems. But of course, that means you have to start at the bottom. But let's talk about that growth potential. If you get a job as a software engineer, you'll start off green, but then you'll start learning everything around you. You soak it in. Fast forward a year or so, and your knowledge and experience will have grown by leaps and bounds. Imagine where you'll be in 3 years or so. Maybe you gain some experience on some hot new technologies. Here's a real example. Your company makes an investment into some new technology. They need software engineers to implement this new technology. On day one, no one knows anything. But after dealing with all the issues and problems during implementation, you quickly pick up the skills for the technology. After a year or so, you become the subject matter expert. The next thing you know, people start knocking on your door with job offers. Company A is looking for someone with your skill set. I've seen salaries double like this. Not saying it'll happen every time, but it can. On the flip side, let's say you're an unmotivated engineer. Let's say you work somewhere for 5 to 10 years without keeping up, without learning anything new. What do you think happens? You'll stagnate, and so will your compensation. And this is why you see salary ranges all across the board for software engineers. If your skills languish, you can expect to be paid toward the low end. And since we said that there's a low barrier of entry, i.e., anyone with the willingness to learn can get a job, you have to expect that entry salaries will be low. But if you go after new things, if you learn some of the advanced technologies, your salary could skyrocket. But there's more. Software engineers also need to know and understand specific standards, principles, and processes. If you look at job descriptions, you'll see things like familiarity with AWS services such as EKS, EC2, DynamoDB, SQS, and so forth, or familiarity with SDLC or software development life cycles and design patterns, agile methodologies, DevOps principles, troubleshooting skills, and the list goes on. So you have to be experienced with a wide array of systems. And yes, I understand these job descriptions are overwhelming. At first glance, you're like, there's no one in the world that knows all this stuff. Plus, they're not paying anything. This is crazy. But that's the other secret to this game. There are so many technologies out there that no single person can know them all. Don't forget that the people writing these job descriptions aren't technologists. They work in HR. So the tech manager says, I need a resource. HR responds with, what skills are you looking for? The manager says, I need 2 years of this, 3 years of that. This is known as throwing stuff out there to see what sticks. So for example, I need someone with 7 years OpenAI experience. But wait, didn't ChatGPT just come out? Yeah, I've seen that too, where people ask for more experience than's actually possible. That gives you some insight on why these job descriptions are so insane. So don't get discouraged. You just need the opportunity to speak with someone on the tech team. Within a few minutes, they'll know where you are and what you can add to the team, regardless of what's in the job description. I think we all see an obvious pattern. If this is something that interests you, dig in and start learning. Give it a shot. Don't get discouraged by that job description. Understand that you may need to go for an entry-level or junior position at first, and that salary will be low. But advance your skills and learn new technologies. That will put you in high demand and will result in bigger paychecks. And naturally, your next question is going to be, which technology should I learn? Watch this video where I lay out the top 4 technologies I would learn if I were starting today.